Hello, I'm Mark Hedinga, and together we're going to build one of these, an improvised respirator mask. Because of the coronavirus, personal protective equipment is still in very short supply, and it is still putting our healthcare workers and people everywhere at risk of getting infected. That's why I've designed this mask. It is custom fitted, so it creates a very nice seal around the nose and the mouth, and it has a replaceable filter at the front. If you work in a hospital and you are currently reusing disposable masks or using t-shirts, bandanas, scarves in their stead, build yourself one of these until you can get hold of a proper mask and increase your chances of staying safe. Without further ado, let's get started. Examining the build, you'll see this is a fairly simple construction. The facepiece is made from a 16-ounce deli container. These are made from number 4 LDPE plastic. This thermoplastic has a VCAT temperature, that's the point at which the material becomes malleable, of only 86 degrees Celsius, meaning we can use hot water to form the container for a precise fit. By now, you'll have noticed there are 2 valves at the top of the mask. They are made from soda bottles and they act as exhalation valves, so the mask will not lift off your face as you breathe out, and it will stop your glasses or your goggles from steaming up. These are 2 extra long hairbands tied together, and the inside of the container is lined with a few strips of self-stick vinyl foam seal. Now let's examine the filter. The cartridge pulls off very easily. And it is made from a Coke bottle and a can of California Scents air freshener. Inside is a layer of electrostatic material from a HEPA certified vacuum cleaner bag. A section I've cut out from a HEPA vehicle cabin air filter. A couple of foam spacers that form a chamber to improve the airflow. And below that, 2 layers of pre-filter material from the same vacuum cleaner bag. Let's pop that back together. Now these filters, these cabin air filters, they are generally rated 98% effective at filtering particles down to 0.3 microns in size. In comparison, N95 filters are tested 95% effective at testing particles of 0.3 microns and larger as well. However, this only applies to HEPA and other anti-allergen certified filters. Regular cabin air filters will only filter down to 0.5 microns, and they are rarely layered with active carbon, which is another excellent filtering material. So in theory, we are achieving very effective levels of filtration, but in reality, it will depend on how accurately you follow directions and the level of detail and care in your craftsmanship. That being said, And it is still just an improvised emergency mask. It has not been lab tested for NIOSH approval, and it does not guarantee NIOSH certified levels of protection. In other words, you're building this mask and are therefore solely responsible for its effectiveness. Your mask is not a safe guarantee of avoiding infection or illness, and you are using it at your own risk. Let's quickly just look at the filter in this little clear, transparent mock-up that I've made, just so we can see how the air really passes through the filter. Now, this is just kind of a mini see-through version of this, just to show and illustrate how the filter is built up. So the air will come in here. It will go through this section of cabin air filter. As you see, the top layer is a particulate filtering material. Then in the middle here, you'll see a little black ridge. That is a layer of active carbon. And then down here, the blue stuff, that is the HEPA anti-allergens, antimicrobial layer integrated in the filter. Down here, again, the chamber and the pre-filtering material. So let's pop that back in. And as you see, that's how air will pass through this filter. Let's take a look at our shopping list. You'll need a 16-ounce deli container, some self-stick vinyl foam weather seal. This is a dense foam with medium compression. And stay away from any non-vinyl materials. Other foams may irritate your skin. 2 extra long hairbands. 1 can of California Scents car scents, the one with the aerator top. I recommend Monterey Vanilla, and these come in multi-pack as well, in case you're buying for a household. A HEPA certified vacuum cleaner bag. A HEPA or other anti-allergen certified vehicle cabin air filter. Now at $15 to $25, depending on the brand. This is the most expensive part in this build. However, one of these will yield 30 to 40 mask filters, which will last you for quite some time. Polyfoam cork saver or something similar. This is just some kind of round, wormy foam material, and I'm just using it to create the chamber in the filter. 2 generic soda bottles. Avoid Poland Springs and other brands using the thinner plastic bottles. These have a nice material thickness to them at the top. And for its unique shape, 1 Coke bottle, little ones or the big ones, doesn't matter. Plumbing seals, 2 different kinds, 5 in total. Need a sheet of construction paper. I wouldn't use printer paper, but I wouldn't use cardstock either. Just something with a little bit of thickness to it, but not too much. You want to be able to make a nice round form, and still have some structure to it. Some glues, 3 different types. We're using silicone glue, super glue, and any type of wood glue or craft glue. This is an optional item. You don't need this, but it's useful to have some Teflon tape This is what plumbers use to seal threads on pipes. This concludes the list of supplies you need to make one of these masks. For your reference, you'll also find this list in the video description below, complete with purchase links, product descriptions and measurements, and the brick and mortar stores that carry those items if you can't order in your area. Though I suspect that with a little bit of digging, most of you will find that you already have the majority of these items laying around somewhere in your home. I've also prepared some circle and ellipse templates for you. They're very similar to the ones you see here. You can download and print those out to help you mark your cuts on your containers and filter materials. As far as tools go, I'm using a battery drill, a rotary tool with a number of different attachments for cutting, sanding, deburring, and polishing. I'm using a heat tool, and I'm using some sandpaper, Sharpie, pricking awl, and a brush. But if you don't have any of these more advanced tools, a small nail and an X-Acto knife, together with the tendency to work with great precision and care, will yield you a near indistinguishable result. Make sure you've got everything set up and ready to go, and we'll jump into our first steps. Take your California Sense container and remove the top. Now, these are made from metal. You will need to make a hole in this. Ideally, you'd use a power tool for that, but there are other ways. So if you're missing tools or can't get one of these containers, don't worry, I got you. You can just take a look at the section dedicated to alternative ways of building the filter cartridge. I'll lift the tab and pull the lid off to open it up. Have a little whiff, and straight away, it's an exquisite scent, but it has a powerful odor. Don't worry, we'll get rid of that. Wear a glove, and I'm going to remove these little scent blocks, kind of stuck in there, but we'll get them out. There we go. Put these to the side. In a vessel of your choice, I'm using another one of my trusty deli containers. We're gonna combine a little white vinegar, a drop of dish soap, and some baking soda. Start out conservatively. The stuff is gonna foam very, very quickly. So I'd say at first just add a tiny little bit of vinegar. Swirl it around a little bit. Let it mix. A little bit more. See, as you see, it's quite a violent reaction, even with just a few drops of vinegar. And you don't want that spilling all over. So again, be careful. If you take a look into this container, you see there's kind of coating inside of here. I'm assuming it's some kind of plasticky material. This makes the container even more porous than it already is, which means that, you know, those little scent blocks will have stayed in there for quite a while, and we want to get this out, which is why we've made this vinegar and baking soda cleaning solution. The foam in the meantime has calmed down a little bit, which means I can add some more vinegar. And that looks like it's about enough. Container M. We can add a little more vinegar to that and we'll be alright. The surface tension is going to help us out here. Okay, there's that. And let that soak for a few hours. Next up, our 2 soda bottles. We're gonna remove the necks from these. I'm using my rotary tool with a plastic cutting attachment, but you can use one of these, any old saw, or even a carpet knife or a bread knife. Just be very careful. What we're going to try and achieve is we're going to try and get very flush with this lip that we have here, and I'm going to get started with the cutting right now and then probably do some sanding. That's one of them done. Discard the rest of the bottle. Don't worry about any plastic like this. We're going to remove that afterwards. Now, same with our second bottle. I should have probably mentioned this earlier, but always wear safety goggles when you're using power tools. Right, so we've got our bottlenecks cut off. Now we're just gonna try and deburr it a little bit. You can use a variety of tools. I'm probably just gonna start with my X-Acto, see what I can cut off. Okay, that's much better now. Just use a little bit of sandpaper just to sand the end of that flat. Okay, these are now pretty flat. Probably gonna sand them a little more just to make them nicer. But other than that, that's what we want. So if you look closely now, see every little bit of burring or any additional edge from the bottle is removed. And all we have left is 2 of these, and they're gonna make our valves, our exhalation valves later on. For our Coke bottle, we're gonna do things a little bit different. This is gonna be the port for our filter cartridge, so it needs to be able to accommodate the seals. Take your seals, the ones of which you only have 2, and hold them up to the neck of your bottle, making sure that you rest them on this lip to get the thickness. I'd say add another 1.5 millimeters to accommodate for glue, the material thickness of the container, and just a little bit of play. Now in our case, you may be able to see on camera, there's kind of already a line here where the material starts bending. I'm going to use this line as my guide to cut, but for you, the space may be a little bit different. And of course, this bottle here, you don't need that either. Okay, that's pretty close. I'm gonna cut some of these little burrs off and then start sanding it. I've rinsed and dried off my container. Depending on how long the little scent blocks have been in there before you open it, you might have to leave it in the cleaning solution for up to 12 hours. Mine was in there for about 3 or 4 hours and is already fine. So I'm now gonna remove the label. And try and get rid of all this sticky residue here. I don't have any solvent on hand, so I've just made this paste out of baking soda and some oil soap, just to kind of create an abrasive to get rid of this stuff. Now with your number 1 circle template, we're going to mark a hole on the bottom of this container. Make sure it's centered. I'm going to use this to fit this part through. So I'm going to cut this out right now. Make sure you wear a pair of safety goggles. Okay, that fits. We're going to put this aside now. Let's bring that back. You're also going to need your Coke bottle top, some silicone glue, and your seals. We've got 5 in total. We're going to use the 2 large ones and one of the small ones. Put the others aside. Remove the cap from your bottle top and cut this little ring here away. We're going to push the small seal over the threaded end. just until it reaches that first lip after the thread. And we're going to take one of the large seals and put it over the other end. Screw the cap back on, not too tight. And apply a small but consistent bead of glue around onto the seal. And around the hole on the inside of this container.
Push the top through the hole. And pull the other seal over the end of the bottleneck. And gently press down. I'm going to use a little screwdriver just to press this down nicely and evenly.
Okay. And center it. Just take some of this glue off with my hands. Now, some of the different glues will generally set within 30 minutes, but some may take up to 12 hours to cure completely. Pop the top back on, and voila, you finished your cartridge. Let it rest, and we'll go to the kitchen to fit our face piece. You join me in the kitchen for the fitting of the face piece. There's a crackling sound in the background. That's a pot of boiling water. Well, we'll get to that later. Let's take a look at our deli container. Keep the lid, we'll use that there. Now these can vary slightly in the way that they're reinforced from the top. There are 8 of these ridges on mine. I'm treating one of them as the center of the face piece, so the area that sits on your nose. Squish the container like so and hold it to your face. Take it off. That's the shape you'll get. Now you'll want to make sure that you angle the container so that it doesn't lay directly on the bridge of the nose, but rather a little bit further down, because that way you can still wear your glasses. This, not good. This, yeah. So let's get the pot of water. I'm going to turn the cold tap on the other side. Container, get the shape right, then hold it in. We're going to do the nose part first, and just kind of leave that area in the water a little bit. You'll feel it getting soft just from the steam already. Remove it, take it out, and under the cold water, while keeping it pressed into shape. And you'll feel it getting harder again. There you go, it's already kind of staying. So we'll do that one more time with this side. Just kind of dip in this corner and again push it and cold water to let it set in its shape. Now we're going to do the bottom. Just going to hold it here at the top. Dip it in. Move it around a little bit. And bring it back into shape. So, there you go. That's how you form your container. Yours might have a slightly different shape, but ultimately don't worry too much about having it fit extremely tightly on your face just as is, because we're still going to add in a half-inch, no, quarter-inch seal. I've taken a little more time forming this container to get a tighter fit for my face. And that's the great thing about these containers, guys. You can form them and deform them as many times as you need to get the right fit. Now let's mark some cuts onto this face piece. You're going to use your number 3 circle template, but remember, yours are going to look a little bit different than mine. Place it bottom center, and make sure that you leave maybe a millimeter from the edge of the surface change towards the inside. Now your number 2, and those gaps in between those 8 little ridges that we have all around the container, and they're divided by 5. 5 times 8 is 40. I'll go with 39. Divide that by 3, and that's 13. So I'm going to count 13 of these increments from the center on each side. Those will be our imaginary center lines. So once over here, 5, 10, 13. And make sure that from the edge of your circle you leave a little space, let's say about 5 millimeters away from where this radius here starts to bend. Trying to align it for the camera. I got my center line of the circle here, and then align it nicely with this 13th notch from the bottom center. And on the other side as well, 5, 10, 13. We're about to cut these out, but first let me show those of you who don't have power tools how to get the nicest cuts you possibly can using just an X-Acto knife. I got a spare container here. You might want to practice this first. They break very easily if you're not careful. Use your X-Acto knife and put in a brand new blade. Hold your knife upside down and supporting the container from the inside, but taking care not to cut yourself. You're gonna very carefully push the tip of your blade into the material and make a small incision. And you can start
carefully cutting around this line. Now again, make sure that you hold your blade upside down. I want to reiterate that it's important that you don't just push, but also slide your knife while you're doing it. So let me show you. So don't just push forward. Slide the knife along the blade as you're pushing forward. And as you're going to get towards the end of the blade, just pull back and out. Also, here's a little quarantine tip for you. If you apply the sliding knife technique the next time you're cutting herbs, you may well be looking at a more flavorful dinner. Again, be careful. If you're pushing without sliding, you're splitting and not cutting. As you move on to the circles around the side of the container, you'll want to exercise the same level of care, but you may find it, while it's easier to cut as it's slightly thinner on the side and more flexible, you may find it easier to keep the blade at a 45-degree angle as you're cutting. So rather than having it perpendicular to the surface of the container, you'd want to take a low angle like this, and you might find that it's easier to get a good shape going without having to pull the blade back too often. And cut it out. Now don't worry if the circles aren't so nice the first go around, because the important thing here is that you don't split the container. You can do any pruning of the edges later on, make them look nice. You can also, of course, sand it. I'm not gonna go and do this whole container now, but you get the gist. This is how you can still get a relatively nice hole with an accurate enough fit to receive a nice working mask at the end. With that clarified, I'm going to move on to cutting these holes using my rotary tool. Change the bit to deburr those edges a little. Just gonna clean this one up a little bit with a razor blade. And we're gonna get our bottle top from the regular soda bottle. Take the cap off and cut a little ribbon away and test the fit. So with a little pressure you should be able to just get it through past this first lip after the thread, but you still want it hanging in there securely on this upper and somewhat wider lip. At the front, yeah, that fits. Alright, let's make some valves. Take the lid from your 16 ounce deli container and we're going to cut this rim away. Put that aside. And now with your number 2 template, mark out 2 circles next to each other, and inside of those two number 5 circles, and next to those you'll make a couple of number 4 circles. Now you're going to mark 5 points on each of these inner circles. Pay close attention to where I'm placing these points. And make sure that you leave this gap here. Now we're gonna drill those out. Now this is just a cutting bit. I'm gonna use this after to deburr, but in the meantime, I'm gonna take my drill and bring our holes up to a 532, or you can also take a 4mm drill bit depending on where in the world you are. Okay, so now that we've got the right size hole, let's go in here from the clean side and just drill these through a little bit, just to make them a bit nicer. And now I'll use my cutting bit to see if I can get any of these other burrs off. I'm going to take the X-Acto knife to clean up those remaining edges a little bit before I just smooth them off. I'm going to change bits now and we'll start smoothing those edges and see if I can get the holes just a little bit larger, but with a bit more control than I could with my drill bit. Okay, just make sure you stay inside those little circles. Let's sand off the actual surface. Let's cut those out. I'm just gonna use scissors for this. Just gonna clean up your surface. We're going to glue these little plates onto these larger ones. So take the little ones and just for a moment, just bend them a little bit into all directions along the circle. You want to end up with a surface that has just a little bit of crown to it, so it's not entirely flat. That will create a better seal. And when you place the plates on top, make sure that you place the side where the crown is facing outwards. Make sure that is facing up. We're gonna put some glue into this gap and make sure you cover them evenly, and to avoid any of the glue flowing into these holes, make sure that you start pressing down from the center outwards towards the edge. Super glue. Just one tiny, minute little droplet. Actually, I'm just noticing I'm a bit close at the hole, so I'm going to remove that and just redo it. That's better. And repeat. Take your bottle tops, caps off. If you still got one of the little ribbons on, you can cut it out. Now what we're gonna do is we are going to glue these plates onto the underside, these guys. You want to make sure that when you do this, that there is ample room around the smaller plate in between the extents of the inside diameter of this little bottleneck here. This is important because you want to be able to have the little plates move up and down as you exhale and inhale. So you want to make sure to also not use too much glue and press it down so hard that the glue will spread towards the inside and prevent the upper plate from lifting. Silicone glue. We're going to start by applying a thin but consistent bead around here. Okay, so this is good enough for what we need. I'm going to use my brush here just to make sure that there's nothing crossing the inside rim. So this one has come a bit close. I'm going to clean this off and do it again. It's not nice, and you want to make sure that you do a good job, because otherwise it might not work as well as you intend it to. Now, very carefully and dead in the center, also with the small plate facing down, lay this on top. Ever so gently press it down. And do the same for the other one. I'm gonna look at that from the other side once I've tapped this plate down a little bit to see if we're too close and whether or not I should redo it or if I can leave it as is. So as you can see, none of the glue has come inside and is touching our plate, so it's good to go. We'll just put this aside and let it cure for a little while. And before you begin, wipe all your surfaces clean for this part. Take the cabin air filter and we're gonna cut away a section large enough to cover your cartridge. When you're making yours, because I've been kind of trying this out with different prototypes, I've been making different filter sizes, but since I'm giving you an ellipse template, yours will all just be one size. So if I were you, just cut the whole filter off its ribs and just portion everything out as effectively as you can. So I'm going to take some tape and tape that down. And I can now use my ellipse template to draw out the shape. As you see, if you portioned all this material out a little bit better than I am doing here, you will end up with a good 30-ish filters for your mask. And again, I'm supplying this ellipse to you along with your circle templates. And when you're trying to cut it out, I suggest you fold it into quarters, because then you just have to make 2 cuts and you can be certain that all of your sides are going to be consistent. Now we're gonna cut this out with scissors. Now with some craft glue, you'll want to seal up this edge all the way around, because as you can see, there's a little black line here, and that is active carbon. So this is to prevent those small granules of the active carbon from leaving the filter, because you don't want to inhale a mouthful of carbon globuli. That's not very tasty. There you are. Store that somewhere where it's safe for it to dry. I'm gonna use another one of these. I'll just turn it upside down. obviously that's not going to work, so I'll just pop the whole thing in there. Okay. Store that somewhere safe to set. Take your construction paper. We're gonna get the circumference of this opening. To do so, I'm just gonna trim this down a little bit and make the paper a bit more manageable. Just gonna do this by eye. Let's mark the cut side and roll this out. Put this into your container, and where the paper overlaps inside, you're going to mark the line. Now we're going to add another one, maybe half an inch, 3/4 of an inch away from this one, and just extend this line here. Now measure 5 millimeters from the edge of your paper. And on this side too. Now, take your filter and get it to the size for it to fit the container. And that's the height at which you'll measure it. And I'd say, you know, give it maybe an extra millimeter or two. So I'm at 15 millimeters, I'm gonna go 17. So I'll measure out 17 millimeters from this line. And measure 5 millimeters from this line. I'm going to hatch this area. Okay, so just to remind you, 5 millimeters at the bottom. The height of your filter, which in my case is 15 millimeters, plus 1 or 2 extra millimeters for tolerance and play, and another 5 millimeters at the top. Let's put this aside for a moment, and we'll take our F2 circle templates. You're going to make a couple of those circles, and inside those, 2 F3 circles also from your templates. Make sure they're nicely centered. I've done a slightly better job on mine, but it's fine. We'll sort that out later on. Let's cut this out. Okay, let's get those a little bit nicer. I'm hoping you've made yours nice from the start. Now let's fold these in half. Okay, let's take this, cut off the end. We're just gonna fold these a little bit. And check to make sure that your filter can sit inside. Yeah, that's correct. Now with your scissors, start cutting a number of little triangles in here. Doesn't need to be nice, just needs something for the glue to latch onto. Okay, add a little bit of glue into the hatched area. And close this. Well, you know what, actually? You're gonna have to cut these little end bits off, because otherwise you'll have a hard time bending those little tabs over. So good thing we caught that just in time. And let's go back and close this up again. Does it fit? Yes. Let's take it out. Clean our surface for a moment. We're about to use some more glue, so we don't want any of these little cutaways to stick to our filter. I'm gonna take a little bit of rest paper just to kind of use that to take all the glue. And you're gonna, on one side, start kind of bending these guys down just a little bit, maybe 45 degrees or so. Now, carefully put this on top. And as you go around a few times, it'll become easier. And once it kind of starts sticking, on it over. And just push it down like that. Okay, put your filter inside just to test the fit. That looks good. Make sure you can still bend these little guys down here. But yeah, that looks fine to me. So I'm gonna take this out now, and we're gonna apply glue around these edges a second time, because we want to be sure that really no charcoal will come out, and to also make sure that once in position the filter stays put. Okay, and then pop this in. And bring it into position. Make sure you spread all those ribs evenly throughout. container to get a proper circle shape. Check on the bottom too. You want to make sure they're all nice and parallel to each other and evenly distributed. I'm just going to take the end of my brush to push these over a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and apply some glue on one side of this piece here. And then you're going to have to push it down all the way around a few times until it actually starts sticking properly. Okay, that's our filter. Again, let's clear our work area. And just quickly check the fit. Yeah, that fits. I wouldn't push it in all the way yet, just because the paper is still drying and it might fall apart once you're pulling it out again. So just let it sit on its own for a little while and make sure it has time to dry and set. Get your vacuum cleaner bags. I've already cut into this material, so if you take a look, this has a number of different layers. It has these translucent layers, both on the outside and one on the inside, and sandwiched in between is another filtration layer. This layer again is 2 layers of material combined together, but we're gonna separate them into just one and use this to go below the aerator of our filter. So let's cut this to shape. Okay, let's separate this out. Take your F1 template and draw a circle on the more opaque of your layers. And with your F2 template, draw a circle on the transparent layers. Let's cut these out. Cartridge. And drop the 2. Actually, I've already cleaned mine, but just to let you know, before you add any of the filtering materials in, clean your cartridge out with water and a little bit of soap, and dry it off afterwards, just to make sure you don't have any dust in there from cutting and gluing and stuff like that. So you're gonna put in the 2 transparent layers on top of each other. Then you're going to take your polyfoam cork saver material, and I'm just gonna cut a manageable bit off. Get the circumference. And push it in to secure down your vacuum cleaning bag material. Push that in, make sure it's nice and secure. And if the glue from your filter cartridge has cured enough by now, you can pop that in as well. And on top of that, the piece of opaque material. Now you'll notice this has two different textures, depending on which side you look at it. You're gonna have to inhale through this material and see which side draws better. So make sure that you pay attention to this when deciding whether to place it the regular way up or upside down. In my case, it's the slightly perforated side that has to be facing outward. Now we'll take our aerator top and push that down. And there we have our filter cartridge. So again, let's clear off our work area so that in the meantime we can look after our valves. Silicone glue. We're just going to add a very thin, low laying bead of silicone around this lip here. So apply the silicone. And this is really all you need. You want to make sure that there is a significant gap in between the silicone and this upper flange here. Let's do this for the other one as well. And again, this is all you need on there. No more than that. This is already on the generous side. Now let's clear everything up and put these away to set, just to make sure they can cure and clear the whole surface. Alright, let's sort out this other cap. In the making of this video, I thought of a way to incorporate a valve here as well. So start by making a nice big dot in the middle. And 4 dots around that. Let's drill those through. Make sure not to drill the middle one out. Now with your drill, start making those holes a little bit bigger. You know what, I could probably put some small ones around here as well. So let's do that. And then let's clean this up. There we go, and I'll just push these little ones through from underneath. Now take an old marigold glove. I've already cut a section away from this. I'm going to do another one just for the video. And take your number 2 template. Cut this away. You see where this is going. We're gonna glue this on top of here, and that's why we left this little bit in the middle here. So add a small drop of super glue right there in the middle. And carefully place this piece of glove on top of it. Pat it down. And that's gonna be our valve for the inside of the mask. It's gonna let us inhale air, but without pushing particles back out of our filter as we exhale. Let's clear up. Let's get those last 2 bottle caps. I'm gonna put some points on here, which we'll drill through in just a minute. Alright, these holes are now large enough for me to set the 532 drill bit into them. I'm gonna drill from the inside out because there is a little plastic heat seal in here, and if I drill from this side it's gonna kind of shred, so I'm gonna go in here just to give me a nicer hole. I'll put my drill aside for a minute, and I will change my bit for a sanding bit and just see if I can make this hole a bit larger, a bit quicker than I could with a drill. If you don't have the rotary tool, then just keep stepping up your bits until you get roughly the same size I'm getting here. And you know, in the end, we're going to clean them out anyways, so we'll make them nice. Alright, it looks like I'm not gonna use my drill after all, so I'm just gonna put this away. Now let's clean all those little plastic bits off. There we go. Now let's get some sandpaper. And just sand away the tops a little bit. Alright, now any little bits that remain in here, I'm gonna have trouble trying to cut out because they're part of this very soft material in here. So I'm just gonna use some heat to melt them away. I'm using my heat tool. You'll be able to just use a lighter if you don't have one of these. Let's clean our surface, and then we're just gonna cut some more of our vacuum cleaner bag to add a little pad in here to close up these holes with some filtering fabric. Take some more of your vacuum cleaner bag material and separate the layers. We want to use the translucent, or the more translucent of the two. And your number 2 template. And you know what? I'm gonna take this piece of scrap paper here, just so that the ink won't seep through. And it looks like I can fit 2 on one piece, so I'm not gonna need the other one. Okay, we can now push those inside of these caps. And I'm just gonna use this thin drill bit to push down the edges a little bit. Let's get our 2 valves and put these on top. Don't close them too tightly. And we'll put them aside for now while we're gonna do the last few steps before we finish off the mask. We're almost done here, guys. Last few steps. Let's take our face piece and count 7 notches from the bottom center, and we'll make a point on this uppermost rim, just next to the little notch. And we'll do another 7, 5, 7 from the top center, and repeat the same thing on the other side. Let's drill those through. And now, again, our 532-bit. Now this is gonna go through pretty quickly. Let's put this aside. We're going to thoroughly clean our container for a minute. Final seals. Make sure you got enough to go around. Alright, now I'm going to take a 6-inch piece and you're going to cut this piece down into 3 2-inch long pieces. From the side, cut a nice angle into it. I've created 2 pieces with a little bit of surface area in the middle and one piece that is more kind of an actual triangle shape. So I'm going to take the more triangular one and get the middle and stick it right here and make sure that you align the phone with this ridge going around here. I'm just gonna clear up here a little bit just to give myself a nicer space to work with. And now I'll take my 2 other ones and just kind of line them up. Now, let's take a piece that I'm going to cut this off here that we know is going to fit around here and start at the bottom center of your container. And just keep pressing it into here. Depending on the shape of your nose and jaw, you might have to add a little bit more or less here on the sides and on the top, on the first layer, before you pull the whole ring around it. Take some of this excess here and cut a little from the side. Okay, and I'm just going to add this little piece here on top. Next, take those hairbands and at the seam, cut them open. Now take an end on each and just tie tie a knot into them. From the outside. This should be about enough to get it over my head. And then you'll make a knot into these. Of course, you'll want to put the mask on your face first, head through here, mask on, and then put these behind your head, and with both hands dragging your fingers like this and pulling, maybe occasionally readjusting the material in between to pull this in or out, and then you'll make your knot where you need it to be in order to get the right fit on your face. You'll want tight fit, but you don't want it to be uncomfortable, so get it as tight as you can without it restricting yourself, your movement, or just feeling generally uncomfortable. Clean our surface. This is very exciting, guys. We're about to move into the final assembly of our mask. Take your valves that you've made earlier and remove the caps, and now push them into these holes here. And if you happened to be a little bit off with this hole and you're getting a lot of play from this thing in here, that's what we have our optional Teflon tape for. You could take some of this and just wrap it around here, maybe do 2 or 3 turns, and that will reduce the play and give you a better seal if that's a problem for you. So put your cap on, reasonably tight, but not so tight that it becomes difficult to open. And now turn the whole valve so that this little gap here is facing the hole where our string is coming out. So hold that in place, remove the cap, put your seal over. Be careful not to move the cap, sorry, the threaded end. And as you're pushing the seal over it, make sure that you support this valve from the outside where you have the structural lip to give it some strength, because if you push in here, you might break or damage the valve and it's not going to work as intended. So be careful with that. Alright, as a final touch, we're going to get our filter cartridge. Insert this at the bottom of our container and screw this valve on. You could probably use this valve for here as well. I prefer these ones, but yeah, here we are. Behold the fruits of your labor. You've created a mask. We're gonna try this on and see how it works.
Yeah, that works. I've got air coming in nicely through the filter. And you can see this inner valve working. And that breathes in and out. The same goes for these upper valves here. I'm recording this on my antique iPhone, so I'm not sure about audio sensitivity. But you should be able to tell from the sound that they're working. Now, I've replaced one of the valves with the rubber glove valve, just to compare. And I gotta say, I think I actually prefer it, just because it is easier to assemble and it has less resistance when breathing out. You can also comfortably wear your glasses with the mask. I'm just going to show you with mine. And they don't steam up. I'm going to take this off.
And there you have it, your own improvised respirator mask. And this product is intended for those of you who want a high-performing DIY mask, but don't have access to 3D printing. And many of you don't, which is why I wanted to create a mask that's accessible to everybody. Some of the components used in this build may not be available everywhere in the world, but that's the great thing about these masks. They are highly modifiable, so if you're running into trouble finding an item on your list, simply improvise and adapt, and you'll be able to overcome that problem, no problem. For those of you who do have 3D printing at their hands, my good friend and fellow industrial designer, Arindra Singh, has come up with an awesome adapter for you guys to attach a 3M filter to the front of your facepiece. He's also the one who helped come up with the rubber glove valve, and I'd like to thank him for his contribution to that idea. The ModMask performs really, really well, given its simplicity, and if you've come up with any cool mods of your own, post them in the comment section and share them with all of us. Thank you for watching, and take care. Goodbye.